All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we're diving
Deep into the world of...
Jesus' parable.
That's right, his parables.
We're talking Seaside sermons.
Oh, and confused disciples.
Yeah, even some runaway pigs.
We're pulling all these fascinating interpretations, by the way, from the Urantia book.
It's going to be a wild ride.
So picture this. Springtime in Galilee, and the air, well, it's buzzing with anticipation because Jesus is about to teach by the seaside.
And let me tell you, the crowds, they are flocking to hear him.
They're flocking.
Yeah, this is where he really starts using this teaching method.
This teaching method that will change everything. Parables.
Now, parables, they weren't exactly brand new. I mean, they were a common storytelling tool back then.
They were familiar.
In that time and place.
But what Jesus did with them, that was extraordinary. It's like he took something so simple, so familiar.
And he just spun it into pure gold.
Pure gold.
He starts with the parable of the sower, you know the one. A farmer scattering seed. Some lands on rocky ground, some on good soil.
You get this mix of good and bad outcomes.
Right. It's almost like, well, life, right?
Exactly.
But here's where it gets interesting. The Urantia book gives us this incredible behind-the-scenes look at how the disciples reacted. And let's just say...
they didn't quite get it at first.
Not at first.
I mean, they were all over the place. Peter, always the eager student, he jumps in first, right? The seed equals the word of God. The sower is the preacher. And of course, Nathaniel, he can't help himself, has to chime in with his own...
With his own interpretation.
A slightly different take on it all.
Oh, it's like they're trying to solve a riddle instead of just like absorbing the story.
Exactly. That's when Thomas, the quiet one of the group,
Thomas.
He steps in, he's like, hold on a minute. Are we overthinking this?
Yeah, are we?
Thomas gets it. He focuses on that core message. The success of any teaching, it all depends on the receiver.
It's about the soil, not just the seed.
You can practically hear the relief in Jesus' voice when he praises Thomas for getting it right.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, these stories, they weren't about decoding some secret message, were they?
No, they were about connecting.
It's about sparking that personal connection with the truth.
It's not about, finding one right answer.
It's about how the message resonates within you.
Within you.
So, speaking of sparking a connection, why use parables in the first place?
Why parables?
Well, the Urantia book actually gives us a glimpse into Jesus' reasoning, and well, it's kind of brilliant. It is.
He understood that not everyone learns the same way.
People process information differently.
Right, and a parable, it allows you to come to it on your own level. It can speak to you.
On multiple levels.
On multiple levels, yeah.
The imagery, it sparks your imagination.
It makes you think.
Yeah, it makes you ask questions.
He wasn't trying to, hand anyone a belief system on a silver platter.
Not at all.
It was about meeting people where they were.
He was inviting them to think critically.
It's so smart, right?
And you know what else?
Yeah.
He was really smart about how he did it. He used relatable examples. I mean, we're talking farming, fishing,
everyday stuff,
everyday experiences that they could all relate to, and he used those to explain these really complex spiritual concepts.
Okay, so parable number 1.
Right.
Check. But Jesus, he isn't done yet.
He shares this parable of the wheat and the weeds. Now, it's a similar theme, good outcomes, bad outcomes.
But this time,
there's a little twist.
There's an active enemy involved.
Sowing those weeds.
Sowing those weeds.
I mean, think about that for a second. You're listening to this, right? And you're thinking, wait, there's an enemy now?
This just got real.
Like, this just got real.
Mm-hmm.
The Urantia book suggests that this parable, it's not just about good and bad choices, but it's about those forces that are working against you, even when you're trying your best.
You ever feel that in your own life?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
Now, picture this. Jesus is on a roll. He's sharing parable after parable by the sea. The mustard seed, hidden treasure, the pearl of great price, the fishing net.
It's like a wisdom buffet.
It's a buffet. And each parable is just this nugget of insight.
Into the kingdom of heaven.
Into the kingdom of heaven. And these weren't just abstract ideas to the people listening. These images, the seeds, the weeds, the pearls, this was their life.
It was their everyday life.
They were living and breathing this stuff.
So they could connect on such a visceral level with these stories.
Oh, absolutely. But just when you think you've got a handle on these parables, the story, well, it takes a sharp turn. Jesus and his disciples, they decided they need a break.
They need some R&R.
They're going to head across the Sea of Galilee.
Escape the crowd.
Find some peace and quiet.
Because, who doesn't need a break after a long day of teaching by the seaside?
Right. But here's the thing about the Sea of Galilee.
Yeah.
It has a bit of a reputation.
It does.
for its unpredictable weather.
You've got the hills, the gorges,
Yeah, it's like this perfect recipe for,
sudden violent storms.
and wouldn't you know it, they get caught in a massive storm.
And I mean massive, like, life-threatening waves crashing into the boat.
Well, the seasoned fishermen in that boat, by the way, are freaking out. They're bailing water, battling those waves.
Jesus is sound asleep.
Can you even imagine? I mean,
Still asleep?
I would be terrified.
Yeah, I think we've all been in those situations, right? Where you're panicking and someone else is just surprisingly calm.
But this is Jesus.
Exactly. There's calm and then there's whatever this is.
Yes. So the disciples, they finally wake him up and they're like, please, you got to do something.
Practically begging.
Begging. And you know what he does? He calms the storm.
Just like that.
The wind dies down, the waves settle, and it's like this perfect starry night. No, I got to ask, and the Urantia book does point this out. I mean, this could have been a coincidence, right?
It could have been a perfectly timed break in the storm.
It could.
But think about the impact on the disciples. I mean, wouldn't you walk away thinking, hold on, this guy has power over nature?
Oh, absolutely. Even if he was just speaking to their fear, calling their anxieties, they experienced it as a display of supernatural power.
And that belief, whether it's rooted in a literal understanding or a metaphorical one,
Right.
it shaped how they saw him from that moment forward.
It really makes you think about how our interpretation of events, especially those really intense moments of fear or awe, how easily those solidify into these deeply held beliefs, right?
Without a doubt. But this is not the end of their adventure.
Of course not. The adventure continues.
They finally make it to shore near the town of Carissa, thinking, okay, now we can rest.
But peace and quiet are not on the agenda.
Not even a little bit.
Okay, so what happens? What happens in Carissa?
Well, they encounter this man. His name is Amos, and he's really struggling.
Struggling with what today we might describe as mental illness.
But you have to remember back then, these things were often attributed to demonic possession.
And the Urantia book really doesn't shy away from those details.
No, not at all.
It paints this really vivid picture of Amos. I mean, he's living in these hillside tombs, which just adds to the whole drama of the scene.
And you know, it's easy to hear that and think, oh, how sad. But it's so crucial to remember the cultural context. People understood the world through a very different lens back then. This wasn't just some abstract concept.
The supernatural was a part of life.
It was woven into the fabric of their daily lives.
So if you believe that you could be possessed by a demon, I mean, wouldn't you be terrified if you came face to face with someone who you thought could control the wind and the waves?
That's exactly how Amos reacts. He sees Jesus and he completely freaks out, starts begging him not to torment him.
Oh, man.
But Jesus, in typical Jesus fashion, he responds with compassion, calms Amos down. He's like, look, you're not possessed. You're a child of God, remember?
And the effect on Amos, I mean, it's immediate. Right.
Immediate.
It's profound. He experiences this incredible shift, you know, like this moment of clarity.
Yeah, the weight has been lifted.
And he regains control
of his mind and his emotions.
So, now imagine this. A crowd has gathered, because of course word travels fast, especially when it involves someone being healed from something like this, something they believed was demonic possession.
Oh, yeah, everybody's buzzing with excitement. And then
this
herd of pigs that's grazing nearby, they get spooked.
Spooks by what? Like, what spooked them?
We don't know exactly, but it's like all of a sudden they just bolt.
They run off a cliff.
Right into the sea.
Are you kidding me? Talk about terrible timing.
What are the chances?
What are the chances? Right.
So naturally, everyone connects the two events. It's like clockwork. He cast the demons into the pigs.
Oh, here we go.
That's what they're saying. It's just automatic.
I know. Put yourself in their shoes for a second. If you were there, how would you interpret that? The timing, the sheer strangeness of it all?
It's like something out of a movie.
And you know this story is going to take on a life of its own.
Oh, absolutely.
So we've got a healed man, a herd of drowned pigs, and a crowd of people who just witnessed something they can't explain. What happens next? So we've got this image of a healed man, some very unfortunate pigs, and a whole lot of speculation swirling around. What happens next? What does the Urantia book say?
Well, it's fascinating. Amos, the healed man, he's totally convinced Jesus cast those demons into the pigs, and he goes out and spreads the story.
Hold on. I got to stop you right there. Are you telling me that even after witnessing Jesus' compassion, his healing touch, that Amos is still stuck on the demon thing?
It might seem odd to us, but remember, this is a time when supernatural explanations were just a given. Put yourself in Amos's shoes for a second. He's been through this traumatic experience, something he couldn't understand, and now he has this powerful, this tangible explanation for his healing.
So it's like he needed that dramatic interpretation.
Exactly. It helped him make sense of something he couldn't explain.
And this isn't just Amos, is it?
No, no, not at all. Even Jesus' disciples, except for Thomas, who, let's be honest, always seemed to have a more grounded view of things, but the rest of them, they bought into it too. They believed he'd caused the pigs to run off that cliff.
Wow. I mean, they were with Jesus every single day, witnessing his teachings, his compassion, and even they got swept up in the drama of it all.
It speaks volumes about the power of those deep-seated beliefs. You know, the way our worldview shapes how we see things, even the things right in front of us.
Absolutely. So the story spreads.
Yeah.
What happens next? What's the fallout from the demon-possessed pigs?
It's kind of a mixed bag, to be honest. On one hand, it actually boosts Jesus' reputation. People are talking about him as this healer, this miracle worker.
Which, knowing Jesus, probably wasn't what he was going for.
Not exactly. I mean, he was trying to emphasize love and compassion, not just supernatural feats. And the Urantia book suggests this incident created some real tension. Some people started to get kind of scared.
They're afraid of his power.
Right, like, what's he going to do next? In fact, some of the locals, the pig herders specifically, they actually asked Jesus to leave.
So they're basically saying, look, we appreciate the miracles and all, but can you maybe take it on the road? We've got livestock to worry about.
Pretty much. And here's the thing. Jesus, always sensitive to the needs of others, he agrees. He leaves.
He could have put his foot down. He was Jesus after all. But he chose compassion over confrontation.
It's a good reminder that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just walk away.
So true. Now, there's one more little detail in the Urantia book that I found really interesting. Remember Amos, the healed man?
Of course.
He wants to go with Jesus to become a disciple.
Can you imagine the irony? The guy who is dead set on those demons is now ready to drop everything and follow this man.
But here's the kicker. Jesus tells him no.
This is where it gets really interesting.
He tells Amos to go back to his people, to his community, and share his story.
To show them what God has done for him. Powerful stuff.
It's like he's saying, you don't need to follow me to spread this message. You are the message.
It's such a profound statement about how our own transformations, our own experiences can impact the world around us.
And with that, Jesus and his disciples, they continue their journey, leaving a whirlwind of awe, confusion, and, well, maybe a little controversy in their wake.
You know, it makes you realize these stories, these parables, they weren't just ancient tales. They were real events that had a real impact on real people.
It's like you said earlier, these stories, they connect with us on such a visceral level.
They really do.
And as we wrap up our deep dive into these incredible interpretations from the Urantia book, I keep coming back to this question of resonance. Which story resonated most with you? What truth did you uncover in these parables? Because that's the power of a parable, isn't it? It meets us where we are and guides us toward a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.